So what we've been talking about a ton is the whole garment dye trend, which we love. It's soft, has a unique look to it. The shades are always slightly different. It has some level of uniqueness. Now, with that said, certainly puts this team in a pickle very often when each one of these garments may have very unique characteristics associated with them. So I thought you were by far the best person to walk us through and the team through, like, talk to us about how these garments are dyed and what the differences can be, and walk us through the chemistry and the science behind how do we properly decorate these garment dyed, pigment dyed, reactive dye, and all those different variations and variables again that are at play, and how do we make a great product at the end of the day. We live below the fold. We live underneath those incredible brands.
What is the vision? Right? So there's a story, but then it's like, where are you trying to go? If it's compelling enough, then you start to get people to believe in it.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We got another impromptu episode with a very, very special guest. In the building, we have Jesse from Matsui. For those of you that don't know, Matsui is an international ink manufacturer, makes a ton of different screen printing inks. You guys do more than just screen printing inks, though, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are actually a chemical company before an ink company. And
Nice.
that's what a lot of people don't realize, that we make our own raw materials, especially the resins.
Okay.
We focus a lot on the resins, not only for screen printing, but for other industries as well. Like now, digital is becoming very popular in textile.
Nice.
Mad scientists, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so welcome to the show. You were at the shop today, so Carl and I said, well, hold on, wait a minute, Jesse. We got to get you on.
Snatch 'em.
We want to talk about, well, first off, we want to just talk like an intro to inks. Give us background on screen printing inks specifically, maybe how they're made, what they're for, why we use underbases, why we do discharge and water base sometime. And then most importantly, we'll be interested in you and your background.
Cool. So how long do we have? Because this can take a while.
That was a lot of questions right there.
How much tape we got in the recorder.
No, I mean, I'll try to keep it, to a very generic, but, screen printing is very important to decorating garments. Matsui's been around for almost 100 years. We are on third generation right now. And, I've been with Matsui for 10 years. And the reason I joined Matsui is I've been in the industry for 25 years. And, screen printing is not something that you wake up or you go to school and say, I want to be a screen printer. I want to print t-shirts.
Unless you're a child, culture studio.
Most of us say, don't be in screen printer, don't get into screen printing.
Or don't even know what it is,
Exactly. But, I've been fortunate to fall into this industry, and I just kind of rode the wave. And every year I've been in the industry, it's been a learning process. And it just amazes me how much information is out there about screen printing, but also how much information is not being shared and considered when it comes to screen printing. Matsui is an important company for us as a country and actually worldwide, because we're trying to get more sustainable, eco-friendly, environmentally safe. All that is going on right now. So when I joined Matsui, it was a perfect opportunity for me to join a company that was already working towards that or already in that, with major performance brands. Without naming any names, we know who they are. So
specifically on the plastisol side, is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So the term, to keep it simple, it's PVC free.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody's asking for PVC free, but they don't know what that consists of.
Yeah.
So PVC free could be anything from silicone inks to PVC free plastisols, which is kind of like an oxymoron. It's actually an acrosol.
Okay.
It's an oil-based acrylic, and then water-based.
Yep.
And water-based comes in a lot of different forms, different chemistries as well. So again, that's why I'm saying how much time will we have, because we can go deep and we can confuse everybody, and they're going to walk away and be like, I want no part of that.
What happened here?
Yeah, so we don't want to discourage anybody, but the correct term is PVC free.
Is Matsui a Japanese word, or is it a Japanese brand?
We are a Japanese manufacturer,
No
yes.
wonder it's great.
Yes.
All things Japanese are great.
Well, Japan is known for having really good pigment technology.
Yeah.
Okay, and then very good chemistry. And we all know, in Japan, they're very crucial to quality and control.
Meticulous.
Yes,
Yeah.
very meticulous to quality control.
Yeah.
So, that's another reason. Most of my career I've been with Japanese companies, from Murakami to now Matsui. So I've been very fortunate to be in that situation with good products. But yeah, so we can go anywhere from, products like discharge, water base, digital, or even different chemistries that are called acrylics, polyurethanes, and so forth. So, so we're involved in a lot.
I was going to say, Matsui being around for 100 years, you got to be doing something right.
Correct.
Right? Like 100 years is a long time. It's a massive milestone.
Any business.
Any business, yeah. But specifically 100 years, that's insane. So they definitely know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
One thing I was going to say, a lot of our audience might be shops, they might be brands, they might be anyone in the industry. And even what you're saying, it sounds so technical, right? There's so many different terms and phrases, and there's so much to know. That's why I think it's important to have someone like Jesse, having relationships for shops, to have people like you. That's why when we saw you walking the floor, we're like, go grab him, like bring him in. Let's talk about some shop stuff, because it's impossible for one person, one entity to know it all. Especially when it gets down to the nitty gritty. We're going to talk about like how these inks react and react differently from garment to garment. So I thought it'd be a good point just to share that it's important to have someone that is an industry expert to come in and kind of lean on, right? And I know you've
A trusted resource
that you can bring in. Yeah.
Well, and your customers, they don't know what it takes to make a T-shirt. Some of them never even seen your equipment before. They think you're just going to put it in a machine and it's going to just pop right out and it's done.
Yep.
And it's a lot more technical than that. And some of the things that I see that are going on here, I'm actually excited about, because this is something that we talk about, development, testing, R&D, doing all this sampling. That's very important, so that you make sure you're not making any mistakes in production. So this is very exciting for us.
Before we jump into kind of modern conversation, meaning like what's going on today in the industry, I did want to ask you one question right like off the top. What is, and you may say there isn't one, but what is the best choice all around for t-shirt decoration when it comes to ink? Is it a water base or is it a plastisol? What is, if you had to say, I only get one and I have to decorate everything that I got, no matter what substrate it is, where's your go-to?
Well, in the past, we decorated light color shirts. Very rarely did we have that opportunity to decorate dark color shirts.
Yeah, also different up in here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's changed a
Only
lot.
black
All
shirts.
black garments.
That's changed a lot. The type of fabrics have changed a lot. I mean, before we used to have 100% cotton, 100% polyester, and 50-50. 3 options. That doesn't exist anymore.
Tri-blends.
Tri-blends. I've even come across fabrics that say unknown.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Great to
that's
decorate
scary.
those.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, but we started with water base. That was the first ink system that was out there. It was water base. Plastisol came in as a solution for a product that was easier to work with, but didn't give you the same quality. And nowadays, quality is soft hand.
Yeah.
The fabrics went from being very heavy, which a heavier ink didn't really affect that, to now the garments being much lighter. So when the garments got lighter, you need an ink that's light.
Yep.
So currently, I would say definitely water base is a better solution for decorating, but there's a learning curve to it, because we're used to working with a different type of system.
Yeah.
So you have to be open to that. Also, water base is a lot cleaner. It doesn't follow you home. It'll dry up, and it's not gonna follow you all the way through your car, your carpet, all the way home.
Yep.
Been there.
Oh yeah. It's
And
it's
steering
all over
wheel.
my truck,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. And cleanup. Cleanup, you just use water
Yeah.
for cleanup. So you're not having to invest in chemicals or your employees being around chemicals to clean. So
Probably the only challenge is in the color matching, the getting faces to be perfect, and then in just like the environment side, is it drying up? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Is it not damp enough? Kind of controlling that environment. But if you nail that, I would agree.
I was gonna say that how much does the weather play? So like right now in Chicago, it's what is it, 110? I think right now, which is crazy. Hotter than where you're from, Arizona, right? It's like,
oh yeah, we have dry weather.
You thought you were coming to like a nice cool place.
I thought I was coming to a little vacation spot and
Well,
take
come
a
on
break
down
from
in
it.
December.
Yeah.
See what you think.
How much does the weather play?
A lot. So yes, heat's going to play a big factor in how the ink performs. But nowadays, everybody has digital equipment, and where does that digital equipment have to be located for it to perform properly?
Yeah. Very temperature controlled,
Correct.
climate controlled across the board.
And then now we have these hybrid systems that have a combination of screen printing and digital. So now screen printers, especially the bigger ones, have to think differently about the environment. And most importantly, your staff. How are they going to be more productive? Are they going to be productive in a hot environment, or are they going to be productive in a nice, cool, relaxed, comfortable environment? You will see that you can get more production out of your staff as well.
Yeah, we've been trying to do the unthinkable down in Florida. Trying to install air
AC.
conditioning in 80,000 square feet. Yeah, actually, even when the actual engineers tell you're crazy, that's when you know you have a significant you have a significant feat on your hands. Even the people that engineer the air conditioning systems like, you're crazy. I don't know how you're going to do this.
I was talking to the paleta guy outside that rings the bell, brings the popsicles around.
You got air conditioning?
Put your head in there. But
absolutely.
Anything that helps, really. As if we didn't need any more variables to what we do.
Correct.
Even the weather throws it in.
And that's a key word, variables.
Yeah.
You have variables in plastisol printing, you have variables in water-based printing. We jokingly say 5,000 variables. You screw one of those up, you're going to have some issues. Exactly. So being that even though you have automated equipment, it's not fully automated. It's still considered analog. And until you go full digital, 100% digital, there's a lot of room for error. A lot of variables there to consider.
Some humans there.
Yep.
So what we've been talking about a ton is the whole garment dye trend, which we love. There's nothing better than a garment that has been sewn together in a PFD and then individually garment dyed. We agree. It's soft, has a unique look to it. The shades are always slightly different. It has some level of uniqueness. Now, with that said, certainly puts this team in a pickle very often when each one of these garments may have very unique characteristics associated with them. So I thought you were by far the best person to walk us through and the team through, talk to us about how these garments are dyed and what the differences can be. And we have some incredible examples. Michelle will definitely layer over some of this stuff. And how we get to doing some level of investigation on, what may have happened looking backwards, and walk us through the chemistry and the science behind how do we properly decorate these garment dyed, pigment dyed, reactive dye, and all those different, variations and variables, again, that are at play. And how do we make a great product at the end of the day?
So you're in a tough situation. In other parts of the world, many screen printers have the luxury, and I say it is luxury because it saves them a lot of time and money, to print on panels.
Yeah.
When you print on a panel, it's not as expensive if you make a mistake, or if you figure out that the fabric has some issues and so forth.
Oh, it's a 60-cent panel, 30-cent panel, whatever.
Has been constructed yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So here in the U.S., we don't have that luxury. There might be a few shops that might be fortunate enough to print on panels, but once it's a finished product, you can't go back.
Yeah.
So I think communication is going to be very important. And basically, what you just mentioned right now is, and it's very important to kind of put out there, there's a difference between what you're talking about right now in the reaction of fabrics, which is called a discharge ink, versus a water-based ink. Okay? Discharge is going to actually go into the fabric. It becomes part of the fabric. Okay? Where water-based kind of sits on top a little bit. It might go into the fabric because of the absorption qualities, but it's still sitting on top a little bit more. So discharge is considered a chemical reaction. Okay? So whenever there's any type of chemical reaction going on, everything has to be compatible with each other. So if it's not compatible with each other, you're going to run into inconsistencies, instabilities. So it's very important for all printers to have communication with their fabric manufacturers, making sure they understand what you're doing for your customers and what your customers are requesting. Discharge is popular because it gives you either a vintage look, gives you a soft hand feel. It becomes part of the garment. And like we mentioned earlier, these lighter, softer garments require a lighter, softer ink. Because we have probably about 90 to 95% of the US market using plastisol, to convert them to water-based takes some time.
Yeah.
There's some education, some training, and there's not enough of us to go around to train everybody in the US. So a lot of the recommendations as a first step is using discharge, okay? Because what discharge does, it goes in there and it removes the dye. And it's normally a reactive dye out of the garment, okay? But in manufacturing, if that dye is not processed correctly or is what they call overdyed, then you're going to run into situations where it might take more of the activator or the agent to take as much of that dye out as possible. It's not going to be stable. It's not going to be consistent. Maybe some sizes have more dyes than others, so you'll have some inconsistencies. And we have two good examples here of that, where you can see.
And so, what we noticed as well when we were going through all this was that, again, like, we like this about the garment dyed items, but literally every single piece was a totally different shade of black. Walk me through, why is that?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily every single piece. It could vary from lot to lot.
Yep.
Or size to size.
We just happen to have like 10 laid out, and all 10 were different shades,
Yeah.
totally different shades.
Well,
how does that happen?
So like what we're doing here, and as an ink manufacturer, we're used to it. We get blamed for everything. We're the first ones that everybody calls and says, hey, your ink's out. Something's wrong with your ink.
Yeah.
So that's why I travel, and that's why I'm available to come help the shops better understand through process of elimination. Okay? So sometimes it could be a human error. Sometimes it could be a fabric problem, or it could be ink problem. So we have to go step by step and figure it out. Some shops run multiple shifts. What did the first shift do versus the second shift or the third shift?
Yep.
Those 5,000 variables, they can change from machine to machine.
Yep.
You might have a new machine, an older machine, air pressure.
Higher pressure.
Yeah,
on one,
you might lower
less,
pressure.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but the first step is always the substrate. We go to the substrate first. Let's see what the substrate is doing, and we test that by adding some clear discharge to see what the natural color of that fabric is underneath.
Yep.
And that'll give us an idea of how the colors on top are going to react.
Yep.
Okay. Discharge is being used a lot for underbasing. So because a lot of shops use a lot of colors because it's just a
do 18 color print.
Yeah,
all
18
day.
color print.
High colors.
Yep.
Every day.
You don't have the luxury of using 2 white underbases. So you're limited to only having 1 screen as an underbase, and this is where discharge comes into play.
Right.
But because it's water-based and there's a chemical reaction going on, we have to ensure that the discharge is flashed thoroughly, okay? So that chemical reaction is not affecting the colors that go on top. If that's not being done properly in production, that can also affect some color variations, some shifting. Okay?
So talk to me about, even in this 3-piece sample, show us why is there such a big difference in the exact same clear discharge?
So here what we're seeing is that we're seeing some overdye from the fabric. Okay, so this comes from the manufacturer. And a lot of times the overdyes come from a manufacturer having too much of one color. Say they produced a bunch of pink shirts, let's say pink shirts, and they have overstock.
And pink was hot in 2021 and now not so much in 2023.
Reddish, yeah.
Correct. And I think they don't consider that we're doing some water base in the US. So they're like, we can just overdye it, turn it the color we need it, and sell it.
Yep.
And it's great, for them so that they don't have to
Sit
eat
on
that
that
cost.
inventory.
Sit on the
no
inventory,
waste
eat that
really
cost.
either.
Yeah. So we are seeing a trend. We are seeing a trend on a lot of the bigger garment manufacturers where they're like, no more overdyes, 0 overdyes, because it's causing a lot of problems for them and the customers. Just like us, the customers are blaming the fabric manufacturers.
Right.
Hey, you're giving us product that has been overdyed.
It's a curveball.
Exactly.
For sure.
So yeah, and it just kind of rolls downhill.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing here is, so we're going from, and the color of a garment starts off as a natural khaki looking color. A lot of people think that it starts white. They automatically assume that it's a white
The
t-shirt.
raw cotton is
Correct.
tannish, cream.
And believe it or not, I've seen white t-shirts be overdyed. And I was like, what a great concept.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
It's like when you
Bring it
discharge
down
it,
to
it turns white.
Wow, great.
Exactly. Why
We'll
not?
take that.
That was a beauty, and it was a navy blue shirt, so it was perfect. But the reality is, it's a khaki natural color. Now, depending on the amount of dye that's put in the shirt, that's how quickly it's going to turn to that color. So if you don't have enough activator or enough heat, then that color can shift, and it'll also shift your top colors. So on the first 2 here, we have an example of 2 different khaki. One's brighter than the other. Okay, not by much, but it's close enough.
Enough to shift color, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And reason being is because you're printing sometimes with high mesh, and a little bit more transparent colors because you're basing it down so that it prints smoothly and releases from the higher mesh counts.
Yep.
And that could turn transparent. So a transparent ink combined with a underbase that's changing on you is going to create, it's just a formulation for shift.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, you know, what we found yesterday was within the same group of shirts, we had a shift of red. You know, we're just turning a little bit reddish. And we're like, why is that happening?
That's where the problem lies, right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, basically, you now have a pink underbase
Correct.
instead of a clear.
Instead of a khaki.
Khaki.
And doesn't match
Natural.
the other parts of the run.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now there's inconsistencies there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anything, all the colors are going to shift, you know, but you're going to notice it more on the more transparent colors or the whites. They're going to turn pinkish.
Yep.
You know, and then we can confuse that with dye migration, you know, which dye migration happens more on polyester.
Yep.
Right.
So this is something that, you know, all printers need to be very careful with if they're working with discharge. The solution here is really communicating with the manufacturer if you truly want to stick with discharge or move up to a water base, underbase, but you're going to be limited to, again, one screen. So how do you make that work?
How do you make the colors
Yeah.
pop?
Exactly.
That's why the education is so important.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it's the more you get them educated, the more they understand. And then, like you mentioned, what is less than 10% of the market uses discharge or water base?
Correct.
I wonder why. You know, because
Yeah.
it's so hard to deal with.
Well, there's other
You know?
reasons. I have my own personal reasons. You know, I just think
Yeah.
it became so easy, you know, and now you can bring anybody to come work in the shop and work it, you know.
Spoon some ink out and go.
Correct.
Yeah.
Simplicity of it.
And the reality is if you start with water base, it's difficult to go to plastisol. If you start with plastisol, it's difficult to go to water base.
Yeah.
So it just depends on
Hard to
how
make the
you
switch.
start. Exactly. It just depends on where you start. But at the end of the day, I do feel that water base is going to play a big role in the future because of all the sustainability and eco-friendliness that we're trying to achieve worldwide. Worldwide, they're 90% water-based, 10% plastisol. So we're like the
The other
only
side.
country that is predominantly plastisol.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
what does that tell you? You know, it's like, why are they still on water base and we're trying to kind of push plastisol? So these are the things we got to ask ourselves. And even as shop owners, do we want to be, you know, part of the problem or do we want to be part of the solution? Or your customers, you know, should also think about it and be like, hey, do we need to get more involved in this? Or, you know, so, but at the end of the day, when it comes to discharge, very important to know what fabric you're working with and their process.
Also, you have these cups of water that we're going to layer on as well. Why is there such? So this, walk us through the process first, and then, you know, most importantly, like, why is there such a difference in the color of the water?
So the water test, we use hot water, boiling water. You know, we put the fabric in there. This is a test that we were doing with the performance brands with polyester because there was some confusion between dye migration and what we call contamination.
Yeah.
Okay. So dye migration is basically the loose dye creeping up through ink because there was no blocking properties there to protect the layers on top or the
Yep.
colors on top. Okay. But once we fixed that and found the solutions for preventing dye migration, when we went to go do our wash test, we were finding an effect that looked like dye migration, but it wasn't dye migration. What
Because
it
it was
was,
being blocked already.
it was being
But there's
blocked.
still an issue.
Correct. So what it was is that the fabric itself was releasing the excess dyes that didn't get treated or cured properly, and it was coming back and contaminating from the top and creating this color shift.
Yeah.
you know?
Variables.
Variables. Yes,
Jesus.
variables.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to show that this can happen with 100% cotton shirts as well. I mean, all of us have gone through it where we wash a new shirt and all of a sudden everything in that wash has changed colors.
Is a gray.
Exactly. You know, one of the probably most popular ones is red. You know, when you print a red shirt and you put a white shirt in there or any other color, it turns pink.
Yep. Yep.
Brown
We've
is
all done
another
that.
one. You know,
Been
brown
there.
is a popular one too. Where brown can actually affect the black shirt. People don't realize that, you know, that brown pigment makes that black shirt look faded.
Faded and lighter. Yeah.
So, you know, we don't have to go through all the details, but, you know, there's a lot of information online about how to prevent black shirts, specifically keeping them from fading,
Yep.
you know, and there's a lot of good information online.
Yeah, I saw the one thing with the coffee or whatever. What was that? Adding coffee grounds or something?
Pepper.
Pepper. Okay.
Pepper, yeah, pepper grounds,
Yeah.
to bring it back,
Yeah.
you know, to bring it back to life. That was interesting,
Yeah,
yes.
super interesting.
Haven't tried it yet,
Coffee
but
sounds better though.
Coffee
Yeah.
sounds
coffee sounds good. Maybe for the brown one.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, again, you're right. Variables. just communication. Having communication with your manufacturers is very important, both on the ink side as well as the fabric side. Very, very important.
Yeah. No, this is awesome. This is very interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of people that understand this a little bit better and can use that, especially for us that are selling and talking to the customer. Educating shop owners and people that are actually doing the production, that's one thing. Then educating the purchaser and the buyer, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And how do we kind of tweeze that out a little bit and make it something that everyone understands? One tip Rich and I can give everyone is have a disclaimer page.
Absolutely.
Boy.
Yes.
Yeah, Michelle knows. She helped us create this thing. And it's like, that's part of the education is like, just let you know that this could happen. And it's there to rely on. Look, it's on our page. It's not something you can refer to every second of the day, but it's good for the team to refer to. It's good for that education side of things for people to understand. And then just something there for you to point the customer to if anything ever happens.
Yeah, and hopefully this gets out to some of your customers or some of the screen print customers out there. If you're choosing a certain style of shirt, do your homework, and don't expect it to be a perfect garment, because we don't know where it's coming from. Unless you're absolutely sure that they're not over dyeing, we got to do our homework, got to do some testing, send some samples to the screen printer so they can test it, make sure it's working properly before you just send a whole production run. And we figure out later, and it's going to cost everybody a lot of money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested. Tell us about your background. I want to, give us the story, quickly. How'd you start before Matsui? Where were you at? Just like career journey so far.
So, for a while I was hopping around a lot, but I started with Murakami. That was my first opportunity in the industry in their warehouse. Former Marine, I was in the military, and I said, I'm going to go to school, and I ended up getting sucked into UPS, and then for a seasonal job, and then through UPS I met a lot of companies, and then I started fixing laser printers for a while, and then my friend from high school was a receptionist at Murakami and said, hey, they need a warehouse guy. So I started working in the warehouse, pouring down the emulsion, cutting the back then capillary film, the mesh, cutting mesh down. And then they came to need somebody to translate technically in Spanish. So now, I'm very more so now than ever grateful for my parents teaching me Spanish, because if it wasn't for being bilingual, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
So through translating technical information, I started absorbing some of that information and learning about it. And then I got pretty much put out there as a junior sales in Latin America.
Nice.
There you go.
And going to these really big shops. Going to these big shops was awesome because you learn so much. And at first, I got a lot of pushback because I was young. And they're like, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. What are you going to teach me? And that's the problem with this industry. You always hear that. I've been doing it this way.
I don't know what else.
Yeah, I've been doing it this way for 20, 30 years. No, if you look at all industries, there's always something new. There's always something developing, and you have to stay on top of it. And back in those days, it was high density. High density was starting, and I had a really unique product to apply or to film at different microns. Once they seen that, they're like, come here, come right in, tell me more about this, And then after that, just opportunities started opening up. I worked for a distributor. I worked for Scott Fresner, US Screen Print, when digital started coming around. I had my own business selling inkjet films. I kind of worked for Ryanette there for a little bit, in LA, and then moved on to Matsui and been with Matsui for 10 years now.
10 years. That's a hell of a journey, man.
Yeah.
Hell of a journey.
It's been a learning curve the whole time.
Right? Yeah, it's always evolving. I was going to say one thing, being inside of so many shops, what is one challenge that you see most of them kind of is consistent throughout shops? What is one challenge that sticks out?
Change.
And change?
Yeah. Change. None of them want to change. They're comfortable.
Amen.
Yeah.
They're comfortable.
Yeah.
Change is the only constant.
I don't want to be negative, but I want to say lazy. I say lazy because anytime it takes extra work or extra effort, they want no part of it. And that is just something that needs to be said. So change, I think, in our industry is very important to stay up to speed. I've seen too many shops go down because they're afraid to change.
And have that open mindset to take a look at something. It might be different.
Exactly.
It might be different than what you're used to.
And you guys mentioned it earlier. Everybody's afraid to put air conditioning in an environment that should have air conditioning.
Yeah, true.
You print plastisol, right? How many times do you see plastisol wide open left on the floor? You mentioned high humidity.
Yep. Okay.
So that water, that high humidity, is actually being absorbed into your plastisol right now. Okay. Water and oil don't mix. So just little things like that. Is it going to make a huge difference? No. Is it going to affect the quality? No. Okay. But those little things, staying on top of them is always going to be that much better on your final product.
Very
Okay.
good.
So I'm not trying to freak you guys out, but I'm just using that as an example of how we need to pay attention to certain things.
Discipline.
Yeah. And
And even just always striving to have that bar at that level. As long as you're striving to get there, then that journey is forward motion.
Correct.
I think that is like as important as anything, is that your radically open-mindedness and your understanding that your bar is higher and higher, and as long as you're on that journey, then you're going somewhere.
Yeah. And again, that's why earlier I said I'm very excited about all the moves that you guys are making, because you're making all the right moves. You're young, which is nice.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I'm a little bit ahead of you guys.
Yeah.
But those are good moves, okay? And that's what's going to continue to help you grow your business in efficiency, quality, and final products. So.
Amen.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. We went and pulls you right off the floor, so Joey might kill us for taking some of your time, but this has been wildly helpful. We'll definitely share it, specifically with some of like our clients that we're working with, constantly on developing new products. I know they'll get a lot of value out of this as well. We'll share with a couple different shops.
100%.
I'm sure that this will be kind of wide eye-opening for them to find out, like, oh, this is why I may be running.
There's a lot of value. A lot of value in what we just spoke about. So.
And us manufacturers, we come to you with some good ideas, some good products that can help your business grow. Take advantage of that knowledge that's out there. And you guys do a really good job of it. I think most of the vendors that come in here are guys that have been around for 30 plus years.
Right.
And you've done
Only
a very
the pros.
good job. Yes,
Yeah.
you've done a very good job of using that knowledge that's out there.
Yeah,
So
we appreciate it, man.
keep up
You're
the
a
good work.
homie. You're a homie of ours. So
Thanks, Jesse.
thanks, man.
We'll have to have you
I
on
love
again.
coming out here.
Cool.
Thanks, brother.